Imagine a powerful nation suddenly cutting itself off from the world. A realm of ancient customs and fierce warriors willfully choosing isolation, almost disappearing from the global map. This is the extraordinary tale of Japan's Sakoku period, spanning over 200 years. Picture bustling ports falling silent, foreign faces vanishing from the streets. It started in the early 17th century under the formidable rule of the Tokugawa Shoguns. But why? What could drive a thriving nation to such an extreme decision? Join me as we unravel this enigma of history. Before there was isolation, there was turmoil. Japan had been fractured, ravaged by wars between ruthless warlords, the daimyo. Yet from this chaos rose a unifier, the Tokugawa Shogunate. These weren't just conquerors, they were masters of control. Determined to erase any threat to their newly won power, their gaze turned outwards. European powers, with their ships and missionaries, had reached Japan's shores. Christianity, once an oddity, was gaining followers. The conversion of Japanese citizens made the shoguns uneasy. They had seen the havoc wrought by unchecked European influence across the globe, violent conquest, the toppling of empires. That would not be Japan's fate. The seeds of Sakoku were being sown. This wasn't merely fear of the foreign, it was a calculated move for self-preservation. Now we delve into the heart of the matter, the why behind Japan's self-imposed isolation. This wasn't a single impulsive decision, it was a series of calculated steps enacted over decades by the Tokugawa Shoguns. Their motivations were multifaceted, drawing upon historical anxieties, religious concerns, and a desire for absolute control. The looming shadow of European expansion played a major role. By the 16th century, European powers like Portugal and Spain were aggressively expanding their empires through trade colonization and religious conversion. Japan for centuries had engaged in limited trade with these nations. However, the shoguns witnessed the brutal tactics employed by Europeans in Asia and the Americas. They feared Japan could become another colony, its traditions and way of life subjugated. The arrival of Christian missionaries further fueled anxieties. Christianity, with its emphasis on a single God, challenged the existing social order and the traditional Shinto and Buddhist religions deeply ingrained in Japanese culture. The shoguns suspected Christian converts might harbor divided loyalties, potentially destabilizing their newly established authority. The Shimabara Rebellion of 1637-38 solidified these fears. This peasant uprising, fueled in part by Christian teachings, further convinced the shoguns of the dangers posed by foreign influence. To solidify control and maintain their vision for Japan, the Tokugawa shoguns implemented a series of increasingly stringent edicts. The Sakoku Edict of 1633 marked the official beginning of isolation. Foreign trade was severely restricted, limited primarily to the Dutch trading post on Dejima Island in Nagasaki. Direct trade with Portugal and Spain was completely banned. The Sankin Kotai Law of 1635 aimed to weaken the power of the daimyo, the regional lords. It mandated that daimyo families spend half the year in Edo, modern-day Tokyo, the seat of the shogunate, effectively draining their resources and hindering their ability to rebel. The Closing Country Edict of 1639 further tightened restrictions. It forbade Japanese people from traveling abroad, and those living overseas were prohibited from returning. Even the construction of large seafaring ships was outlawed effectively, severing maritime connections to the outside world. The shoguns viewed Christianity as a direct threat to their authority and a potential catalyst for rebellion. Christians were forced to renounce their faith or face persecution. Thousands were martyred during this period, and Christianity went underground, practiced in secret by small communities. The ramifications of Sakoku were profound. Japan became a self-contained world, fostering a unique cultural identity. Traditional arts and crafts flourished in isolation, with advancements in woodblock printing, kabuki theater, and porcelain production. However, Japan also missed out on advancements in science, technology, and military capabilities that were rapidly evolving in the West. This technological gap would become painfully evident when Japan was forced out of isolation in the mid-19th century. Historians continue to debate the merits of Sakoku. Some argue it was a necessary evil, providing Japan with a period of peace and stability after centuries of war. Others see it as a missed opportunity that hampered Japan's progress on the global stage. Sakoku remains a fascinating historical enigma. It was a complex policy driven by a confluence of factors: fear of foreign domination, religious anxieties, and a desire for absolute control. While it fostered a unique cultural identity, it also had significant consequences for Japan's future trajectory. Japan's isolation could not and did not last forever. In 1853, the arrival of American Commodore Matthew Perry and his fleet of black ships shattered the silence. Demanding the opening of Japan's ports, the Americans, with their superior military might, forced Japan out of its seclusion. This pivotal moment thrust Japan into an era of rapid modernization, a whirlwind of transformation. The consequences of Sakoku now became starkly evident, revealing the technological and military gap that had developed between Japan and the West. The legacy of Sakoku is complex and carries lessons for our interconnected world. Was it a necessary period of introspection that protected Japan's unique identity, or a setback that left them vulnerable in a rapidly changing world? Would Japan have been forcefully colonized had they not isolated themselves? Were there alternative paths they could have taken that balanced internal development with a careful engagement with the wider world? These are questions historians still ponder. It's up to you, the viewer, to decide where you stand. Do you view Japan's isolation as a bold act of self-preservation or a step backward, stifling a nation's potential? Discuss your thoughts in the comments below. And finally, if the mysteries of history fascinate you, consider subscribing to our channel for more explorations into the events that have shaped our world.